For the past 2 years or so, I have had a small business supplying internet to my neighbors pretty much. Nothing like a big ISP, but it pays some bills. And the way that I've been managing that internet business is through Excel. So I have this Excel sheet. Hi, this is feature mark from like 1 hour from now. I noticed after I was done recording the video that I'd not switched my screens from like just the talking headshot to the screen view. So this is the Excel sheet that I talk about right here for the next few minutes, and the points that I make a reference to are these months, like the part for payment when a client pays, I update the status. So when you come to, as you're going through that part, just remember that this is it. All right, carry on. Right here, I have two copies, the 2024 and the 2024 copy. So I made this just so that I could clear the data for my clients. So this is what I keep track of, and this one I mostly use it for payments to know when a client has made payment for a specific month or not. And this works, right? I've used it the whole year. I think I made it in January, either in January or February, thereabout. And I've been using it for the whole year. But it has some limitations. There are times when I'm away from my laptop that I'd like to keep track of this data. The client has made payment, I'd like to update the data. But this is just an Excel sheet. Now granted, I could use something like Google Docs, just transfer the same data, move it over to Google Docs. But software engineer, and if I can build a system for something that currently uses Excel, and this is not a bash for Excel, I'm not speaking trash about Excel. Like I mentioned, it works and it serves its purpose, but I'm not an Excel guy. I don't know much about it, and frankly, I'm not willing to learn at this moment. And it can do a lot, especially when it comes to data analytics. It can do a lot, but it's not something that I'm willing to learn at this moment. And so the idea has been to build a portal, a management portal, where first I can automate all this stuff, all these processes, where a client can log in, they can make payment for a specific month, and then their records will just be auto updated. Because the process right now is the client sends me money, I open my Excel document, and I update the status, whether they've paid. By default, it's not paid. So when they pay, I come on here and update the status to paid for that particular month. And as I said, it works. But I'd rather it be a hands-off process, because sometimes I forget. A client will make payment like today, and then I'll say I'll do it when I get home. Then I forget. And then like 2 weeks later, because I didn't update the record, I text the client, hey, it's past the due date, because this is what I use to check. You can see they have the renewal dates here. And I end up asking for, reminding a client that it's past the due date, despite the fact that they already paid. It's only that I didn't update the record. And so to avoid all that, I'd like to automate that process. The other thing is communication. Normally, because it's the internet, the ISP, now my provider, they get maintenance. Maybe they're upgrading their network. Maybe they have like physical maintenance in the area and they need to shut down a certain area for them to be able to work. I don't know. I'm not into networking or that kind of networking. So I don't know what kind of maintenance they do. And sometimes the internet goes down, right? And in that case, I need to communicate to my clients. And so my current process is I have a list on my phone. It's just a broadcast SMS list that I go on there and write one message, send it out to everyone. It's a very non-personalized message because I can't enter their name. It cannot be dynamic, right? It's just one text that is sent out to everyone. And so with regards to the communication, I'd like it to be more personalized and automated. So those are the things, the reasons why I want to have this management portal. Something else is later, actually. There's something called a radius server. I'm not very conversant with it. Just done a bit of research on it, and it allows you to. I have this. It's called Winbox. Hi, this is FutureMark again. So what you see here on the screen right now, that is the Winbox that I'm talking about. You get to set up the clients one by one, assign them specific IP addresses, the upload maximum limit and the download maximum limit. The radius server is right here. So that's another thing that I forgot. Screen stuff. Bear with me. Right, carry on. And this is where I do pretty much everything. Setting up clients, assigning IP addresses to them, their package, what their speeds are for upload and for download. And with the radius server, this is something that can be automated. And so I'm looking at a situation whereby, because right now, if let's say a client has delayed and it's past their renewal date, I have to come on here and manually kill the speed. Okay, but with the radius server, that's something that will be automated. As I mentioned, I'm not very conversant with how it works, but I have the general concept. It's this client here. It has the ability to communicate likely through here. You set up a radius connection and they're able to, there's a bidirectional communication going on. And so whenever a client has not paid, so my server is able to tell when a client hasn't paid, and it will communicate with the radius client here, right? And that will automatically kill the speeds. And at the same time, it will send them a text telling them, hey, it's past your renewal date. And then later when they renew, then my server will pick the renewal and it will communicate through the radius server and client and restore the speed. All that making the management to be hands off. right? It's not a lot of work. I mean, so far I only have 21 clients. And so it's not a lot of work to do it manually, because it actually rarely happens. Most of my clients, they pay on time, and the ones that don't, well, no pressure. I mean, I give them some leeway, but starting next year, I would want it to be more strict, yeah, and automated, so that even if there's going to be an extension, then the client must have communicated, because what happens sometimes is they don't communicate if there's going to be a delay in payment or something. And so I'd want them to know that if they don't communicate and I give them the extension based on what we agree, the date we agree that they're going to clear their arrears, then they'd lose the connection. Because that communication, that's like the most important thing. I mean, it happens that clients get delays, salaries delay. It's completely normal. But just that heads up is important. But that's a feature for like way later. And for this system, I've been thinking about it for quite a while. I looked at my Trello board, and I saw that this project setup, I created it on May 16th. It's December 28th today. So that's one reason why I'm recording this and just putting it out there, is because I want to hold myself accountable to the public. The other reason why I'm recording this is because I have students, a software development instructor, full stack, at an edtech startup called Go My Code. And so the tech stack that I'm going to be using to build this particular portal is what I instruct, is what I guide students through in the bootcamp. And so I'd like them to see what the process is from start to finish, because they learn all that stack, right? All the tech, they learn the MongoDB, they learn Express, working with Node, React, plain JavaScript, HTML, CSS. They learn some SQL databases, and learning them in isolation is one thing. Bringing them all together to build something is a completely other thing. And yes, they do projects as they go, but the one thing that I find that's missing from the bootcamp is seeing somebody build it from scratch, or use the tech stack that they've learned to build something from scratch. And I realized this earlier on, because some time back I used to really binge watch people streaming on Twitch, and I found that to be important, because you might watch tutorials on YouTube that take you from start to finish in implementing the technology that you learn, right? But the thing about YouTube tutorials is they don't show the whole picture, because you'll find it's mostly somebody who has already pre-built the project that they are working on, and they'll either be copying the code that they've already written, code without any errors, right? And so the YouTube tutorials, they miss out on a very important aspect, which is the difficult side of coding, because as you're building a project, you'll encounter issues. And if you've just been using YouTube tutorials to like learn how to build something from start to finish, or you've learned it in a boot camp where the content is provided, you're guided on what to do. Yes, you'll experience your errors as you're learning and you learn from those errors, but there's some power that comes with seeing somebody go through the process and scratching their head, and because that shows you that it's a completely normal thing to go through. And so I'm doing this for those guys, right? Those guys and girls who I've been guiding for the past, been there for 8 months now. Started in April, and some of them have graduated, but they still have a long way to go. They're still learning. And so I'd want them to see what's the process like. How do you even start building a project? How do you break down the problems? So I've already stated like some of the problems that I want to solve, right? But I'm not going to go straight into writing code to solve those problems. I love to break them down. So I'd want them to see that process, to see the struggle. Because no matter how many years of experience you have, there will be some struggle involved when you're building software. And if you're just used to seeing people do things and they work right off the bat, you might think when you encounter those struggles that you're doing something wrong. You're not. And that's why I'm recording this and putting it out there. So it's for my students and also for anyone, actually. Anyone on their software development journey who would like to follow along with building something from start to finish. Okay. So I've already been speaking for like 18 minutes. So as I mentioned, this is a project that I've been procrastinating for a while. Unless I'm going to get to it, but I've not really had that push because the Excel has been working, right? People send me money, I update that they've paid. I need to communicate. I have that broadcast list. That's been working, but I'd like to make the process better now because we're moving into 2025, and well, you can say I'd have to create a new sheet for that, and I don't want to do that. So I'd rather 2025 I just start with my clients using the portal. So for today, what I'm planning to do, what I'm planning to cover, and I don't know how long this is going to take, so this video might be long. This is not a structured thing. This is not going to be a structured thing. I've not prepared anything. I just opened OBS, set up my webcam, hit record. And so most of this will be just me making things up as I go. And for this first video, the thing that I want to cover is the project setup. So I'd already started the process because looking at my GitHub, I do have, let's see, it's called Nitram net. I already set up the repo, but it's a very empty repo, just as a git ignore and a readme.md. The project, all I had done was set up just the folders. So not that much, just the client and the server folder. This is where I always start. Ideally, you'd want to have like a template where you're just cloning, because systems have very similar structure, like very similar foundations, right? You'll find if it's something like authentication, the way you authenticate on one system is going to be very similar to how you authenticate in another system. So you'd want to have that initial structure already set up in a starter template that when you're starting, you just clone. But for the reasons that I stated earlier, specifically the one where I want my students to be able to follow along and see what the process is like from start to finish, I'll be starting this from scratch. And so the client folder is completely empty, and so is the server folder. So that's what I want to start with. And I'd also want to set up, other than just setting up the server and the client, I want to set up a domain for this, and deploy something, like from the very beginning, deploy something. I won't be using a VPS. I'll start with using Vercel for the front end and render for the backend. Ideally, you can use render for both the front end and the backend, but Vercel is built for NextJS. I mean, it is built by the same team behind NextJS, so they have optimized it for NextJS, and so that's where I'll be pushing the initial, and that will be like my dev environment. But later on, I'm going to move the entire project. Once I'm done, once I have an MVP ready for my clients to start using, I'll move it to a VPS. We'll have the entire app running on just one VPS, because it's not going to be something heavy. I don't need microservices. I don't need any distributed systems. I'll just have it in one VPS. And so that's going to be a later process, the VPS that is. But for this, as part of the project setup, that's something that I'd like to do. So let me start with the client. I'm going to use NextJS for the front end, so that's React. And for the backend, I'll be using Express and Node and Express. And for the database, I'll be using MongoDB, because that's the tech stack that I teach, that I mentor students on in Gome Code. So I actually forgot to switch the screens. All this time I've been speaking, doing things on the screens. I'm not really used to that, so if I forget that, you'll just have to bear with me. I'll remember at some point to switch screens. So this is what I was saying. I just have the client folder, server folder, and an empty readme right here, and a git ignore file. So I'm going to start with the client. Just open that in a new tab, and then set up NextJS. So whenever you're starting, if you're new and you're not yet familiar with the processes, with the foundational processes of a certain framework, just go to the official documentations. Like here, you can see that the command to set up NextJS is this. So if this is not in memory, if you've not memorized it yet, just go to the official documentation and copy it. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'll run that, and it's going to install. Oh, it's version 15 of NextJS. I've actually not used version 15 yet, but I'll learn on the way. If there's any breaking changes from version 14, yes, lint, yes, tolerances, yes, yes. your code inside the source directory, yes. App router, yes. Turbo Park, yes. Customize, no. Okay, so when you're setting up Next, it will ask you these questions. So you just answer them based on how you prefer your setup, your NextJS setup to be. So I prefer to work with TypeScript. So I answered yes, yes, lint, yes, tailwind, yes, definitely. I'll be setting up ShadCN later. So ShadCN requires tailwind. So we need that. And as it does that, could be working on the server. The server is Express. So there's not really much to do here with regards to like running a specific framework command. It's just initializing it. So initializing npm is just the default options for the package.json. This is done. That's okay. Let's see. Yep, all good. Set up the node modules. We can open this on VS Code. So you have the app folder in there, page.tsx, just the default stuff that you get. If you check the package.json, then there's a dev script. I have an alias for the dev script, which is nrd, short for npm run dev. Let's run that, get that running. Oh, it already is. So there we have Next.js setup, and I won't be doing much to this code. As I mentioned, I want to set everything up, configure the domain, point it to my Vercel hosted app. And so I'll just be hosting the default, what to get by default. There's actually a deploy now button right there. What does it do? What happens if I click it? I don't know. Never used it. So I'll just go through the process that I know. Maybe that's something you can try later. So stop that server because it's running just fine. Then set up the server. So we've already initialized npm. And what I want to do now is to install Express. So I already have a git ignore file on the root. Actually, let me open the entire project from the root and node. There. So the git ignore, I'm going to add the node modules folder. The .env, actually what we can do is we can copy the contents of this, then bring them over here, save, and now we don't need the one that's created by Next.js. Well, that's weird. So let's reload. See whether that's gonna fix it. Because ideally the root level git ignore should be, yep, now it picks it up. It just needed a bit of a refresh. So now the node modules are ignored, no matter whether that's in the client or the server, and all these other files. Okay, so some of these are Next specific, others they cover even the Express app that we're going to be running on the server. So we'll need to add another git ignore in here. Cool. So let me set up the server and get a route going. So that's Express. Okay. So the way that I like to structure my my apps is, because I'll be using TypeScript on the backend as well. So I need a source folder that's going to have all the TypeScript files, and then later I'm going to be compiling them to a different folder that's now going to be executed in the production environment. Okay, so I'll create that folder, src. Now we have the src in there, and inside the src it's .ts, so server.ts in there, and that's going to be our entry point. I'm not going to be doing much with regards to this server for now, for this setup process, because at the moment I'm not going to be deploying the server, because I think that would make the video too long. I don't want to make this first video too long. I just want to see, because the server will not be seen, and right now the client just has nothing. It's not communicating with the server, so right now I don't need to deploy the server, but that's something I'll do maybe in the second part of this when I start working on it. So the only thing I'm going to be doing here is importing Express, and I'll turn on Copilot just so that it's already on. So import Express from Express. Just want to have that that initial server going. Request response, res.send, hello world, and that's pretty much all that we need. Let me create a .env on here. Confirm that it is ignored. Yeah. So for my server, I'll be running it locally on port 3005, and even on the VPS, when we later come to running it will be on port 3005. 3000 is for the client. That's provided by default by NextJS. So that's it. Later on, when we get to now working on the server, I'm going to set up the entire folder structure on here. But for now, that's all I'm going to do. I'm not even going to be installing the compiler for TypeScript, because I don't need to compile at this moment. So I'll just leave it as it is and push the code to GitHub as the initial project setup. So I have some aliases on here, like for git status, that's GS. So I can see there's some untracked files in the client and the server, and the modified git ignore file. So I'll just add all. So git add all, GAA, zoom in a bit. So GA, that's for git add all, and then commit, and the message, can't remember that this alias contains the message, but let's see. Initial project setup. Okay, and then I'll just push, because I'd already added the remote origin over here. So I'll just git push. Now we should get the client and the server. That's perfect. So the next thing I want now is to go over to Vercel, create a new project. So new project, import git repo. So import that. Project name, Nitram, that's okay. Other, I'll select that this is NextJS because it is the framework that I want to build the front end with. And I'll edit the root directory to clients. And I don't think I need to update anything here. Let me confirm from this. Can always confirm the dev script. The build is next build, so that's what's indicated here by default. Because it's Next.js, it will just understand the commands that it needs to run. Environment variables, I've not added any. Later on we might add a few. We will add a few. So for now we'll just leave it. Okay, let's deploy and see. So if there's no problems, then the build should be successful, and the deployment as well. So let's give it a second. Okay, perfect. So we now go to the dashboard. You can see that the app has already been deployed on nitramnet.vercel.app, and now anybody can be able to access it. So Vercel makes this process much easier. Later on, when you get to deploying to a VPS, we'll see the longer process of doing this. I mean, you can still set it up using pipelines in such a way that all you have to do is push code to GitHub, and then it picks up and runs the scripts, runs any tests that you might have. I won't be writing tests. Now that I mentioned them, I won't be writing tests for this app because it's not exactly a big app, and I'm not building it in a team setting. Okay, it's just me, and it's a relatively small app, so it doesn't really require any tests. Okay, so now that we have that, I can move on to provisioning a domain. And when it comes to domains, there are a lot of options. But the one that I've used since 2017 is Namecheap. Their prices are relatively low. It's in the name, Namecheap, right? So they have some of the best prices you'll find around. I think the only competitor in terms of price is Cloudflare. I've not bought a domain from Cloudflare, but what I know about it is that Cloudflare doesn't mark up the domain price, and so the amount that it costs them to provision that domain, to register that domain, is the amount that you pay. So Namecheap, I love them. The interface is perfect. Their support, top notch. So I'll just log into my account. And I need my password. It's right here. Get the password. Username, sign in. Okay, I need the code. Okay, so the domain that I'd like to register, let me see, nitram.net. Oh, I do not have $4,000 to spend on a domain. No, actually on .net. So the only option is to update this. Yep, the Nitram.net. Okay, I think I'll go with that. It's $13. $13 plus the icon fees will be about $14. So let me top up my card. The Nitram.net. I'm sorry, I cannot multitask to save my life. So let me see. This will be about 2,000 Kenyan shillings. So let's say it's $14 times the exorbitant exchange rate to 132. Yeah, it's about 2,000 Kenyan shillings. Let me transfer that. Okay. Confirm order. Let me move it off screen just in case there's any information that should not be exposed. Okay, so the domain has been purchased. So from December 27th, and it's actually 28th on my end, but I guess time zone difference. So it's going to expire. I've just purchased it for 1 year. I'll renew when the time comes. So when you have this, you're good to go. What you want to do is come here to advanced DNS. CNAME, you can remove this. Redirection, you can remove that. So you're left with no records. Then coming over to Vercel, there's the settings. Already there's a domain that you get, but it's a .vercel.app. You get a subdomain on the vercel.app domain. But if you come here and you go to domains, you're able to add a domain. So I'll just take this because too lazy to type. Paste it on there. Then add the domain. Now I want www to be redirected to the Nitram. I know they say this is the recommended, but I don't know. Just don't like seeing the www on there. So add. So right now it's going to say that it's invalid configuration, and that's okay. It's because we haven't told the name servers. We haven't configured the DNS to point to Vercel. Okay, so you need to tell the server managing your domain that, hey, I need you to point to the Vercel servers. So when somebody comes knocking on this domain, they can be taken to this server, and this server will be able to handle it from there. Okay, so to do that, you can see they recommend adding an A record. You don't want to add the name servers because, okay, this is personal preference. You can set up Vercel to be the one responsible for your DNS. Okay, but I prefer to just keep things here because this is where I've registered the domain. If I want to manage it, I'd rather just manage it from here. Okay, so don't use the name servers option. Better to use the A record so that you can keep all management stuff on here. So later when you need to add any other records, just need to come on here where your domain is. So I'll copy this IP address. So it's an A record with a root host. So add new record, A record, the host is art, and the IP address, that's the one, automatic. Okay, so that's going to get it working for this domain. So we still need to configure the www to work as well. So for that, you add the CNAME with this under the name. So I'm just going to copy this up to .com, then go back here, add a new record, CNAME. The host is not the root, so it's www, and the target, that's the target. Okay, and set that up. Then we just wait. So this has already picked up. So Vercel will just continually refresh to check whether the records have reflected, and they have for the main domain. So now I can go to, I cannot. Okay, seems not yet. So let's give it a second or a minute. I'll pause. It's probably not going to be more than 5 minutes, but I'll pause the video and then come back when it does. But before I do, let me just refresh once more. So not yet. So let me pause the video until it works.
A few moments later.
All right, so it's done propagating, and it actually took a bit longer than I thought it would. And I don't know whether what I did is what prompted the propagation, because I came here and I removed the domains, then I re-added them, and immediately I did that, came here, refreshed, and there we have our site. So the site is live on the Nitram.net, and ideally it doesn't have anything, just the boilerplate code that you get with installing, with setting up NextJS. We've not deployed the server, so that will be for a later time after we've built it quite a bit. But for the client, we are done for now. So now the way that this works is that any push to the main branch Okay. Anytime we push here to the main branch of this repository, then that's going to initiate a redeployment on Vercel. So you can see the deployments here. If I make a change, so let's say come just real quick to the source up page, not the page, but the layout. Let's just say that this is the Nitram internet. The description, local management portal for the Nitram internet local ISP in Nairobi, Kenya. Well, technically, I'm not an ISP. I just share my internet. But hey, a guy can dream. So with that change, this should update the metadata up here. So you can see that it's create next up, which is what I've just updated right now. So when I push this and I reload that page, we should see this change. So I'm just going to add everything. Git add, git commit, metadata, then git push. So now that push to main, if I refresh, we'll see that it's building. So on Vercel, it's pending, it's deploying you up. You can click on the details that will take you to the deployment log for that particular deployment. So same thing as we'd seen earlier, but now this has been automatically started when we pushed to main. Deployment summary, so no errors, all good. And now if I refresh the app, we get the Nitram internet. So Vercel makes it easy in that way, that all you have to do after setting up the app is pushing to your GitHub and setting that up manually on something like a VPS requires some specialized knowledge, but we're going to be doing that later on in the series. Okay, and I think that does it for this particular video. It's already 1 hour long. And so what's next from here is the next time, which is probably in a few hours when I sleep and wake up. It's already 6 a.m. I need to go to bed. So when here under project setup, don't know whether this works. How do you add? Do you know how you add those checkboxes? Bullet list? No. Oh, there's a strike. Okay, so just add those bullet lists. So that's the main. Vercel setup, the main provision. Well, these should have been written before. So the project setup, yeah, the other thing will be server setup. So that's setting up TypeScript, because TypeScript requires a certain setup process. Actually, I've seen that Node by default now has TypeScript built in. I think it's something that was released yesterday. But I meant to check that out, so I don't know how it works. Whether that means we don't necessarily have to have too many configurations to work with TypeScript. But I'll go with what I know for now. So server setup, folder structure, database models. So that's what's going to be under the server setup, which I believe is what we'll do next. We also have, so we need to install ShadCN. I find it very easy to work with ShadCN. Makes front end super easy. Anything else that we need to do with regards to the project setup? If there is, I'll just add to the list. So for now, that's all. So in the next video, I'm going to install ShadCN, and then I'll set up the server and create a basic API. Then from there, we'll build on. The other thing we'll also do in the next video is brainstorm our to-dos, like really go in depth on what the project needs, break them down to tiny tasks that we can then just check one by one. Okay, so that's in progress, and that's it. This is where I'm going to end the video now. If you've watched the entire one now, well done. I know there was a bit of ranting, but that was just in the beginning. Moving forward, there won't be as much. The only ranting that will be there will be my thought process behind everything, and maybe ranting about errors that I experience. But hopefully you find this helpful. And if this is something that that you'd find helpful for you even in future, you'd want to be involved in the process, like setting up a project from start to finish, maybe even in other languages. Next year, I'll be working on something after I'm done with this project, because I don't want to start on that before I'm done with this. That will be related to that. Okay, so be on the lookout. Starting today, there'll be announcements here and there. I'll leave information about my socials down below, because I can't do that placing them on the screen. I don't want to do too much video editing. So check out my socials down below in the description. We can connect over there and can look out for those announcements. All right, that's it. See you in a few hours, or maybe see you the next time. Peace.